means am I just sitting here waiting for World Cup 2022.
No, and I think that shockingly, and it shouldn't happen this way, and is again another indictment, I think, of the efforts of young Americans to put in the work that's needed. And I'm not sitting on the front porch being grumpy old man. I'm talking about there are young people in other countries who are doing the work. We may well have peaked for a while in 2014 and make it in 2018. That generation of players seemed to be one that had really driven the U.S. soccer team to pretty good heights, made the knockout stage, whatever. Now a couple of their performances I think were oversold. Tim Howard made 18 saves in one game in a competitive game against Belgium. That just doesn't happen. I mean, you give up 18 shots in a game, you're usually going to give up 5 goals.
Especially to a team like that.
Right. But it would be a shame. And we are forced, it's not the right word exactly because everybody does it in that sport, to try and recruit basically pseudo-American players. Players who have some claim of citizenship that works for soccer purposes, but aren't necessarily really American. I mean, do we really have to do that in order to, field a competitive team? And I think that anybody who wants to play for the country and can do it under the rules, I'll embrace them coming here, and playing for the team. But I think it just shows that when you are going to those kind of lengths to get somebody who has dual citizenship to play for your team, that's a problem. And I think it is a problem for the national team.
We're talking to Danny Clinkscale here for Danny Unleashed here on the program, Sports Radio 810 WHB. One more thing on that. USA, the men's side, will play Mexico Sunday night. And I mentioned this when I was speaking with Ali Trost earlier. To me, I don't think they can win. Mexico's a powerhouse team. I don't think they can win. But for me, and this sounds terrible to say, you never as an American want to say this because you want to be the best at everything. I just hope they don't get embarrassed. And that might be a win for me.
Because that becomes a setback. You lose momentum. You lose confidence. You create a situation where maybe dual citizenship players don't want to play for you. Like, why should I do that? I'm not even going to qualify for World Cup. I'll go play for Guyana, or that's a bad example, but I'll play for a team that could be very competitive in the World Cup. I'll play for Belgium. I'll try to play for Germany or whatever. But they've gotten past the point they couldn't lose to anybody else except Mexico in this competition.
Right.
If they lose to Mexico, there's no shame in that.
No. If they'd have lost to Curacao,
that's a top 15 team. You can't lose to Trinidad and Tobago like they did to get kicked out of the 18 World Cup. So they have done the bare minimum they needed to do in this competition because losing to Mexico is no shame.
The line, I can get a line from Office Space from almost anything. And what would you think of someone who only does the bare minimum?
Well, they've
lecturing Jennifer Aniston.
They've done the bare minimum. They have done it. They've accomplished that.
Be proud.
At this time of year,
wear more flair.
Yes,
I'm sure we're going to
talk
pieces
of flair.
37 pieces.
Sure, we're going to talk Royals on this.
Yes, we are.
Unleashed segment.
Yep. After this,
but
break.
That's this is another thing that's really good for the U.S. Women's World Cup, which has the best ratings. Kansas City has the best ratings for it. It'd be a good opportunity for sporting, except they're not having a very good season because the Royals narrative is just the same thing every time you talk about it.
Yep.
But let's plow that ground when we do so, because they're our major league team. You have to talk about them. Dandy timing as they go into Washington right now before the All-Star break, right when Washington has become the hottest team in baseball after a miserable start to their season. So I talk about doing the bare minimum. I expect them to get swept.
Yes.
So if they win one, you're like, yeah,
right.
Yeah, baby. We got one.
We won a game.
1 of 3 is what they've been to this point.
Yep,
that's right.
They slipped under just below that yesterday.
Yeah, they slipped under the 333. They had been comfortably over there for a little while, and then boom, crash.
More on that later.
All right, we're coming up on the timeout here on the program. My name is Brad Porter, filling in for Soren Petro on this July 5th, 2019. Curtis Seabolt is here. Judd Marshall is running the show, and Danny Clinkscale with Danny Unleashed is our guest. Back after this quick timeout on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is Where Integrity Matters. Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
All right. Before Jorge Lopez, it was the last Royal to face 4 batters, allow 4 hits, and allow 4 runs. That has happened a total of
67 times.
No, it's happened.
Is it 10 times?
It has happened 5 times now
times.
in Royals history.
That all? Ooh. Boy, that sounds like... Well, maybe it's because...
It's the 4 runs thing is too.
Well, it's
4
also...
batters, 4 hits, and you're out. That's one thing. But to have all 4 of them score is another thing.
Well, I think part of it is also the fact that probably a lot of people who walked in and gave up 4 consecutive hits stayed in. So they wouldn't have just gotten pulled that fast.
Yeah, it's a combination of that and the fact that whoever came in after them did not exactly bail them out.
No. I remember Eduardo Villasi's one and only major league start was not long, but probably
he faced
longer
8 batters.
8 batters,
yeah, I think.
Now it goes back.
Didn't get anybody out.
No,
it goes back to 1995. Billy Brewer, the world famous Billy Brewer.
Wow.
Bud Black did it in '88. Someone named Bob Stoddard, who I do not remember being in the '87 team, and Royals Hall of Famer, the late great Dan Quisenberry in 1980. So, two of the
World Series,
2 of the other 4 World Series team.
Yeah, that's what I.
So
no, was that in the World Series? Because he wasn't very good in that World Series.
No, he was not. He and Willie Wilson had rough October stretches in that series against the Phils. But the fact that Bud Black, who's a serviceable pitcher, and Dan Quisenberry, who was a great pitcher, are on that list. That is kind of a one-off.
Right.
But Black was better than serviceable.
Yeah,
that's
you're right. He
unfair
was. You're right. He was leading. He was the Royals' leading winner in their '84. The '84
team. He was
team.
pretty good when he was on the Giants, too.
Yep.
Yeah. By the way, Easton Roofing
Yes.
is your sponsor of Danny Unleashed and founded on the principles of hard work, integrity, and customer service. Visit Easton Roofing, where integrity matters, at eastonroofing.com. They also sponsor DannyKlinkscale.com and Friday's Kansas City Profiles. Neither of you will be surprised by this, which today features part 1 of the Kansas City Profile of Stan Weber.
It takes a while. He can spin a yarn or two, right?
It's the second time it's happened and they're good yarns too. Because Mike Swanson had a 2-parter because he
knows everything and everybody.
Yeah, he had so many great stories. Also, Easton Roofing looking now for people to hire on at Easton Roofing. Great place to work. All kinds of great perks and services, and just so you can also visit eastonroofing.com for that as well. Usually, I'd say make sure you call the office to get your roofing repairs set up and talk to the wonderful Sam. But I was just texting around with Joe Spiker from Easton Roofing, actually, and he is the kind of business owner who has given the entire holiday weekend off.
Oh, well,
to
that's
his staff.
nice.
So
awesome.
The office is closed today, but I'm sure if you leave a message, you will get some service with a smile very soon at eastonroofing.com.
There you go.
If you're looking for some entertainment during the rain, Stan Weber will provide that in part 1. And I think one of the purposes of Kansas City Profiles is to get you to know better people you know by their accomplishments. And Stan's story as a young athlete is pretty remarkable, pretty darn remarkable.
I know
people think of him as, well, he played a little quarterback at Kansas State, and it's pretty amazing what he accomplished.
He was a 3 or 4 sport.
He was
star.
the stereotypical thing from the past: point guard, shortstop, quarterback, sophomore, junior, senior,
and probably 4.0 or better because he's brilliant.
Yeah, and he was a scholastic. He was a All-American, scholastic All-American, and went in college. So he's a very accomplished guy right from the start. But really great stories, and we've only got the half of it because he has been a great success in business and family life as well.
And when you ask him a question, he gives you long answers.
Right.
He does talk a lot, and which makes me wonder, how did you ever get out of the huddle in time? Can you imagine?
Yeah, but when it comes to football, Stan is all business. So
Hey, Stan, just play clocks at 2.
Well, back in the 80s,
I'm not done yet.
Back in the 80s, it was probably just toss right 32X, and that was it instead of this. Now in college football,
at the line,
this
especially for Kansas State.
This drives me nuts about college football.
Renowned for taking it down to the nub.
There's so many things that bother me about college football. The 3.5 to 4 hours it takes to play now. But when they get to play in the huddle, then they get lined up, then everybody gets set. And then the quarterback and the wide receivers and the tight end, if he's not down, and the running backs all take a step back, look to the sideline for more hand signals or the signboard with the funny logos, and they change the play again, or they confirm the play, and it drives me insane.
Although I like college. I like to watch
I like college football, but that's just part of it. Just drives me nuts.
The pause and then turn is kind of a unique thing that has.
To me, that's your emotion. I'm sorry, you moved. But I get it. Whatever. Now I'm Danny Unleashed.
Brad Unleashed.
I don't quite. One thing that I have always found interesting is that as an offensive lineman, you're really not supposed to move.
Right.
And if you get down in a stance, you can't even pick your hand up.
Right.
But if you're in that sort of half crouch,
if you're leaning on your knees with your arms,
you can look around and sort of wave your arm back, and you can do all kinds of stuff that would normally be considered a false start, but so it's kind of a gray area that's kind of funny there. But I guess we're going to segue to baseball.
Yeah.
Did you like your London baseball last weekend?
I did not. I mean, if you wanted to just see home runs and scoring, great. But for me, in the stadium, what was it, 385 to dead center? I mean, hell, I could have. When I was younger, I could have hit it out of there. I
thought it was a good entertainment. I have my thoughts that these leagues are just barking up the wrong tree if they think they can really make inroads into these.
See, I like
countries.
The one in Australia because they play a lot of baseball in Australia. I like the one in Japan.
Right.
But this London one, I was like, really?
Well, I don't think people quite. I've talked about this in other contexts too. I don't think people quite understand how dominant soccer is in these countries. I mean, it's more pervasive.
It's a
as
lifestyle
far of interest than the NFL by leaps and bounds.
Yes.
I mean, I was just in Barcelona when they were playing in the Champions League. It's everything. There's not really other major sports that much in these countries. The World Championship of cricket were going on, but
European basketball is good.
When I wrote about it, it was part of my Monday podcast. So I was looking at some London media, and the Guardian wrote a column about it, and that's sort of the New York. I mean, the London Times and the Guardian are sort of the New York Times, Washington Post of England. But then I looked at the Sun, which is their big tabloid.
It's like the New York Post?
Yeah, but it's even tabloidier.
Right.
So National Enquirer.
Their sports page website, the front page, probably had 150 headlines on it.
Wow.
It was cursoring down, lots of things, lots of scandalous things. Even Carmelo Anthony caught on a beach with somebody he was not supposed to be with, and soccer players who were having, some... Not one. I couldn't find baseball. I couldn't find the baseball. I don't know if they had one story about the baseball going on. I think most of the fans there were either expatriates or
U.S. service members
or people who said this is, and it was. People from this country said, I've never been to London. I get to see the Sox and the Yankees. What a great trip of a lifetime. Supposedly, they were trying to sell the fact that 70% of them were sold within the United Kingdom, but I bet a lot of those were for Americans. Mm-hmm. And it's just